This is BBC News with the latest headlines for viewers in the UK and around the world. Hello there. We start in Egypt, where salvage experts are warning it could take weeks to refloat the vast container ship that is currently blocking the Suez Canal in both directions after running aground on Tuesday. Now, these are some of the latest images that we're just bringing up here in an effort to dislodge the Ever Given, which is some 400 metres long and weighs 200,000 tonnes. Those numbers are absolutely staggering. 8 tugboats are attempting to tow the vessel into deeper water. And at the same time, dredgers are trying to clear the mud from underneath this vessel. But, I mean, what an extraordinary task it's got to do. Just let's remind ourselves of where the Suez Canal is and just how important this little stretch of water is. It was built as a shortcut for ships between Asia over here and Europe. Now, it's a vital route for cargo and oil from the Middle East, as you can imagine. The alternative is this. Round the southern tip of Africa, thousands of miles further and more than a week longer. At least 150 ships are backed up on either side in one of the worst maritime traffic jams that we've seen in decades. A flow of cargo worth $400 million an hour is being held up. This is according to the latest estimates. Shipping experts are warning that we could start to feel the economic effects really soon. Now, let's go to Singapore now to speak to Esben Poulsen, who is the chairman of the International Chamber of Shipping. Thank you very much for joining me, Mr. Poulsen. Now, time lost is money spent. We talked about it in the queue to you. $400 million every single hour in trade. And this doesn't even count up the insurance cost. Who is going to end up paying for all of this? Whether or not your members are already embarking on that plan B, that route all the way round the Cape of Good Hope. Is that what they're doing already? I've been doing the news a while, and the stories that I keep seeing are weather-related incidents. I see an increase in the number of freak weather incidents becoming actually quite normal, and we're seeing growing consumption. We cannot stop wanting to consume things, to buy things, to manufacture things. These two factors put together means that risks of things like this happening are only going to increase. So shouldn't there be restrictions on the movement of megaships like this? So what could be the broader impact on global trade and the economy? Let's speak now to Yael Selfin, who is a chief economist at the consultants KPMG. Yael, thanks very much for joining me today. Now, we've all seen the memes on the internet, we've heard the metaphors, but it is time to get real, isn't it? This is much bigger than just a few late Amazon deliveries. Now is the time for a big rethink on the way in which global supply chains are organised, outsourcing, for example, just-in-time manufacturing. I mean, we've already seen chaos at the ports, particularly around issues such as Brexit, for example. When trade comes back online, we're suddenly going to have much greater volumes going around the world again. Is it time for a proper rethink on global trade? Honest here, it's just cheaper to ship things in big tins, in massive boats around the world, than it is to put them on a plane or do anything else. Actually, Yael Selfin in London for us today. Thank you. Now, let's go to Washington now, where the titans of Silicon Valley have been getting quite a grilling on Capitol Hill. Members of the House Energy and Commerce Committee interrogated the bosses of Google, Facebook and Twitter on their role in the companies playing in promoting extremism and misinformation, and not for the first time. But the link is newly relevant after the Capitol Hill riots, of course. Now, each boss was asked whether their platform bore some responsibility. They were asked to answer yes or no, and here's how they responded. Well, there you go. It's not the first time social media companies have taken quite that kind of level of grilling from politicians. But Congress, maybe they're about to do some action. A lot of tough talk about making them a little bit more responsible for what's being said on these platforms, removing the protection of something known as Section 230. Well, let's speak to Dan Ives, who is from Wedbush Securities in New York, and he specialises in tech investment. Thanks very much for joining me, Dan. Now, we were talking about it there, a lot of tough talk, but so far no action. Is that ever going to change? Bullish as an investor on the tech industry. Are you starting to reevaluate the risk that tech poses to big money, to investors like you?
Yeah,
only seen its influence grow exponentially. Does it therefore follow that the risks and the threats that big tech poses to society have also grown exponentially?
yeah.
Very much in New York.
Thank you.
You can go to bed now. Thank you very much for staying up so late for us. Thank you. Now, let's move on to Asia, where the World Bank has predicted Myanmar's economy will slump 10% this year amid nationwide protests, strikes and international sanctions following the military coup on the 1st of February. Now, before the coup, the World Bank was predicting growth of almost 6%. That is some of the strongest growth in the entire region. Well, Mariko Oy is looking at this for us in Singapore. Now, Mariko, this week, the United States and the UK imposed fresh sanctions on businesses that are funding the military in Myanmar. I mean, do we know that it's going to specifically target that funding, or is it likely to spill over to the people of Burma more generally? Do stay with us here on BBC News. Still to come, the F1 season. This is BBC World News, the latest headlines for you. OK, let's turn our attention to the high-octane world of motorsport now, because Aston Martin is returning to the Grand Prix circuit for the first time in 60 years. It's at this weekend's season opener in Bahrain. The return comes after the car maker was bought by a Canadian billionaire, Lawrence Stroll. He told us that the new budget caps in F1, teams can only spend only $145 million a year, now means it makes business sense to take part. He's been explaining all of this to Aaron Hazelhurst.